We've referred to some of the tools of manipulation. We've referred to anchors, links, and triggers. And if you remember, an anchor is an association that's always repeated, like a nickname. One of the most effective in terms of manipulation used in the recent political campaign here in the United States was Crooked Hillary. So referring to, she wasn't the only one who was anchored, but referring to her as Crooked Hillary forms that association that subliminally works and then starts changing people's world models, and then adding to that the filtered information to produce confirmation bias, and then social compliance within groups, and creating further links to emotional triggers like being lied to, being manipulated, really does the job very effectively. What we haven't yet discussed is something I call hooks. Hooks are something that draw people with certain issues together to really get them to jump onto the hook, which is why I call them hooks, because there's the baits laid out there, and that's what leads to the anchors and links. Hooks can be pretty common. One of the common ones, for instance, is being cheated or manipulated. A lot of people really don't like the idea of being cheated or manipulated, and that often is an authority hook. So the idea that the government or your boss or the management or big corporations or whoever are cheating you and your life would be better if it wasn't for them. Now, this could well be true. We're not saying it's not true, but it's in some cases, certainly not all, but certainly some, but it's still used as a hook. So for instance, disgruntled people in the workplace who seek to manipulate co-workers or to recruit co-workers would often use a common hook. You know they're lying to us, don't you? You know they don't want us to know the truth, sort of to play on people's insecurities. So people will jump on to the hook, and then the anchors, labels, and links to the emotional triggers become that much easier to place because it's like the fish jumping onto the hooks, taking the bait. And this is one way that groups of people are very effectively hooked into the scheme, as it were, because generally we tend to feel that we should have been luckier, we should have been more fortunate, and perhaps we don't want to blame ourselves for that misfortune or lack of achievement, and often it's much easier to blame somebody else. So that's why hooks are very appealing, and that's why manipulation tends to work very well on groups of disgruntled or disenfranchised people. This, for instance, is where gangs and cults tend to often be able to recruit people because they find people who are just generally disenfranchised, feel they've been let down by society or by life or by the government, whoever, and are looking for someone to blame, looking for somebody to say it's their fault other than themselves. And when they find partners in misery, when they find partners, groups of people like themselves, it's a very big hook. Again, going back to the social compliance issue, group issue, it can often feel like a home, feel like you're accepted, and maybe that then produces an anchor to say, well, because these other people agree, they feel like they've been disenfranchised and it's not their fault. They feel like their opportunities have been taken by rules, the government, the bosses, whoever, the corporations. I feel the same. So there's a sense of social belonging there. You can see how each of these tools be used in a matrix to recruit groups of people. So anchors, links, triggering, social compliance, hooks, are various tools to get people all in together. But people who are generally disenfranchised, people who feel they've been unfortunate but it may be not their fault, by and large would tend to be more easier to recruit. And that's why we see this a lot, for instance, in the workplace. We see this sort of company anarchist who wants to say the management are out to get them all. We see it in groups of friends where somebody who wants to manipulate the group identifies a villain, identifies the person or to blame, the target, which will be one of the managers or all the managers or the perceived leader of the group or the most popular person in the group, and then starts to recruit people by explaining to them that they would all do better if it wasn't for this person, or they would be more liked if it wasn't for that person. So that's one of the hooks that's thrown out there.